Can I first of all just check that everybody can see and hear me this morning? Just a nod or a thumbs up would be fine. Excellent, good. I think everybody's here that should be here this morning from looking at the list of attendees. So hope everybody had a pleasant evening. I would just like to confirm that we have received the transcript, Mr. Hardy, came through last night, and also the list of the core documents that are to be referred to as well. Can I just check with Mr. Armstrong, did you receive the core document list as well? Okay, you're still on mute, but I'll take that as a yes, as a nod. Okay. Are there any matters that anyone wants to raise before the council begins its evidence in chief? Seeing no hands up. Okay, on that basis, I'll turn to Mr. Armstrong for the council's evidence in chief.
Good morning, sir. I've now got the microphone on. The council's witness, as you know, is Carol Anderson. Ms. Anderson has given evidence already on 2 occasions at this inquiry, and her qualifications and expertise are set out in Annex A for report CD 9.46. And if we take her recognition, which is CD 9.34 as read, and the report as read, there are 1 or 2 corrections, I gather, that you wish to make, Ms. Anderson, to your report, which is CD 9.46. And I think if we perhaps start by having that to hand, and I think as in a previous session, you can, we'll go through these corrections just now, but you can then produce that in a note, so as everyone has the typos and corrections to be made. And I think
that would be fine, just as we did with the previous session, just so everybody's got an accurate record of that. That's great, Mr. Armstrong. Thank you.
Right, and I think the first one is in paragraph 4.5 of the report, which is page 8, and I think that should also be electronic page 8, because I think they do match up with paper pages and the electronic ones. But anyway, it's paragraph 4.5, and there's one change there. Is that right in the 3rd line and the sentence beginning my focus?
Yeah, yes. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, good. And I should say good morning. That last line should say focuses, not focus.
And then moving on to paragraph 5.14, which is on page 12.
Yes, in that paragraph, 5th line up from the bottom paragraph, it should say east, not west.
So that's then the sentence beginning, just for us all to be clear. At the beginning, the relief of the steep valley sides are experienced from the minor road east bar. That should read.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next one, I think, is a CD reference, which is out of sync, and that's on page 14, paragraph 5.23. Is that correct?
Yes, it's for viewpoint 12. The correct CD reference for that is CD 1.043.
Right, so we should take out the 2 and put in the 1 there. And then second last one, I think, was third last one. In paragraph 8.5 on page 25, and is it that last sentence that begins at then viewing, 3 lines from the bottom of that 8.5, and that should be?
That should be 10. 10 viewpoints.
Yeah. We should change the viewing to 10 view locations. And then paragraph 10.9, where you refer to Craiginmoddie in that second line of the first sentence. That should be what?
That should be Carrick.
That should be. So that's 10.9, second line after Knockcronal. And then there is one omission, which I think you would like to add in your annex B. And if we go to, is it page 30, between page 35 and sorry, it's page 36, is it?
It is, yes.
What is the change there?
Well, what I've done in this table, I've highlighted in bold where, just to summarise what the differences are, but the key differences are between the parties, and I omitted to do that for that particular viewpoint 7 from the Colonel Hunter Blair monument. And there should be a conclusion in bold at the end of the 4th column in that table. And it should say, agree effects on views significant, but consider sensitivity and magnitude of change underestimated.
Sorry, just to be clear, I think I might have given the wrong page there. What page are we on?
This is page 36. Sorry, I'm paper copy, so I'm not sure of the electronic page number.
I don't think it's page 36 on the version I'm looking at. It looks like page 37 is the one that has Colonel Blair.
I think, is that the one that begins?
Apologies for that.
Is that the one that begins recreational routes, Colonel Hunter Blair Monument and nearby promoted footpaths, or is it somewhere else?
It's yes, it is. It's 30. It's actually. Apologies, I think it's actually 36, but it isn't viewpoint 7. You're quite right, Ms. Leven. It should be
Is it in fact the daily?
Yes, it's the Girvan, is the daily area, sorry. It's the day, it's under the effects on representative viewpoints groups of visual receptors, and it's the daily area, which starts on page 35 and goes on to page 36. And it is on page 36 in the 4th column that the conclusion is missing. Apologies for that.
And that should say now what?
It should say, agree effects on views significant, but consider sensitivity and the magnitude of change is underestimated.
Because I think for all the other ones you've got where there's disagreement, there's a sort of bold.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Right, if we turn to a couple of other matters now, there was a suggestion by Mr. Hardy that he had potential concerns that in some way your evidence on Monday at the policy session was at odds with your evidence that you gave when you had a discussion with Mr. Fraser previous week in relation to the capacity study. Now, we've been provided with a transcript of that evidence. Do you consider there's any conflict with what you said on Monday and what you said in the discussion with Mr. Fraser?
No, I don't. No, I have reviewed that transcript and it deals with my cross-examination, particularly on the capacity study. I have clearly acknowledged in both my written and oral evidence to this inquiry that the capacity study does not fully accord with current guidance on landscape sensitivity studies.
Thank you. Now, in relation to, I think yesterday's discussion, and I think it was Mr. Hardy and Mr. Coop there was a suggestion that the distances that you had used in relation to how far the turbines are from the Stincher Valley LLA boundary may have been incorrect. Could you just, I think you've looked at this overnight, and what is your position?
Yes, I did check this overnight, and I particularly looked at two documents. So for the reporter's information, those are, the first one is CD 1.028, which shows landscape context. It's a figure 6.1 as part of the EIA. And the other figure that I'd like to draw your attention to is the map in the Local Landscape Designations Review document, which is CD 9.13. And the map for the Stincher Valley LLA occurs after page 30. And I'm sorry, my electronic page numbering didn't seem to be working on this this particular document. So it is page 30. I'm not sure if it coordinates, but it's the map for that particular LLA.
I think that is electronic page 47. It's after paper page 30.
After paper page 30, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, to there, but
That's
yeah, continue on.
So I had estimated that the proposal, the closest turbines within the proposal, the southerly turbines, lay within approximately 0.9 kilometres from the northern boundary of the LLA. That's in paragraph 6.20 of my inquiry report. I think yesterday, Mr. Cook considered that it was 1.4 kilometres distance, and that was mentioned in the LVIA. If you look at the two plans that I've drawn to your attention, it looks to me that the southerly turbines within the proposal lie probably even closer than 0.9 kilometres. You can see the boundary has been, of the LLA, has been taken to the edge of the woodland within which the proposal is partially located. And that accords with guidance on good practice of taking boundaries of designated areas to more firm features on the ground. So it actually looks like the southerly turbine just at the corner of that woodland would be pretty close to the boundary. I don't know the number of that particular turbine because it doesn't seem to be on the site layout plan within the EIA, but it gives you a useful comparison so you can kind of see the distances.
Yeah, it's helpful. And then again, I think you heard Mr. Cook's evidence in relation to the difference in heights between the Hagyard Hill and the AOD of Hagyard Hill and of the application turbines. And you also heard his discussion with Mr. Hardy in relation to the South Ayrshire Council objection and the reference to objection part 1 and part 3. You've helpfully set out the objections at paragraph 2.1 of your inquiry report on page 4. And we can all read that for ourselves. And it's identified there that it is considered that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects of this wind farm could be mitigated by reducing the size and or number of turbines. However, given the vertical height of the proposed turbines, the location is inappropriate given the sensitivity of nearby landscapes. And of course, the analysis that supports that is set out in detail in the report that accompanied this document. We can see that from the section 9.5 of the report. But you heard Mr. Cook's evidence yesterday about the AODs and the discussion there, also in relation to Hadyard Hill might be repowered and increased heights. Can we just get your position on that?
Yes. In terms of council's objection, I produced an appraisal report of the proposal to the council on landscape and visual matters, addressing landscape and visual matters, and they have incorporated much of that in their report to committee. My advice to the council, however, did differ slightly to the key reasons for designation identified in the council's report, in that I acknowledge that there could be potential for mitigating the effects of the proposal by reducing the height and or number of turbines. But I did acknowledge that there would be likely to be significant landscape and visual effects remaining, even if that were done, but they could be mitigated to a degree. My advice to the council as a standalone document doesn't appear to be on the CD list, but we can provide that if that would be useful for the reporters.
I think it may well be, but your advice, I suppose, we can see that the report does set out at paragraph 9.5.4, electronic page 13. It identifies that location, size, and number of turbines of this proposal would have a result in more severe significant adverse effects arising on parts of the sensitive adjoining LCTs, which lie close. It's identified location, size, and number. And then we can also see, can we not, in the conclusions of that section at 9.5.20, the overall conclusions of the drafter of the report, which was adopted by the council, and in their as part of their objection.
Yes, yes. I mean, in terms of particular site that's being proposed, I think the elevation of that site exacerbates the effect of locating much taller turbines in that area. So particularly 200-metre high turbines as proposed, and their effects on adjacent landscapes. If the site had comprised lower ground, similar perhaps in elevation to the Hadyard Hill wind farm, which is a shallow basin largely, it might have mitigated some of the significant landscape and visual effects to an acceptable degree for the council, I would consider. And that was in my advice to them.
And that, I suppose, follows through into the advice at paragraph 9.5.21, electronic page 20, which identifies that the effects of this proposal could potentially be mitigated by a reduction in the size and number of the turbines to reduce the prominence of the turbines and avoid the need for visible aviation lighting. The elevation of the proposed site and its location close to the more sensitive landscapes of the upper Stinshire Valley and High Carrick Hills, Merrick WLA, would still be likely to result in some significant adverse effects on character and views. Even, I think it should be if these recommended mitigation measures were placed. I think
that is yes, that's my advice.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Armstrong. I'll turn to Mr. Hardy. He's now with us? Oh, Mr. Hardy, you're back.
Good.
No,
I've not been away, sir. I've just been
Yes.
just off camera.
Okay, no problems. I'll turn over to you now for cross-examinations.
Thank you very much then. Good morning, Ms. Anderson. Hopefully, we're going to keep this relatively short. One of the benefits of going third is lots of material has been covered before. It seems to me there's not actually a great deal left between us. So the idea is to hopefully finish by lunchtime, just to give you an idea. I'm going to start where those last questions were directed, and that's at the wording for the reasons for objection and your involvement. So just to pick up on your involvement in this scheme, page 5 of your inquiry report. So that's paragraph 2.2, the internal page 5 of your inquiry report.
I have that, Mr. Hardy.
You tell us that in your role as consultant to the council, you provided landscape and visual advice on the proposed development at the application stage. That advice is incorporated into the council's regulated panel report. So the first point at which you became involved with this scheme was when?
I don't think I was involved at the scoping stage, but I was involved as soon as the application was submitted.
We know that you've been involved in this area for at least a decade, so 2013, and then the updated review 2018.
Yes.
And post your so your first involvement when the application was submitted, your involvement with this scheme then has been consistent throughout the council's handling of the scheme through to the present day, has it?
Yes, it has.
Yeah. And in terms of landscape advice, has that advice been exclusive? Council, has anybody else been involved, or have you been the sole provider of it?
I've been the sole provider.
Thank you. In terms of the handling of the application, tell us a little bit about that. We know that you produced a report, a detailed consultation report. You tell us that that's absorbed into the officer report. Did you have any active involvement in the production of that report, or was it a case that you sent off your consultation response and then you let the officers do their job?
The latter.
So it was open for the officers to read what you had to say. They obviously know the area very well, and they can come to a slightly different view in relation to a number of matters.
Yes, though I should stress that with South Ayrshire Council, I have always undertaken site visits, joint site visits with the planning officers. So we've gone to review residential amenity aspects, and we've visited key viewpoints when we've been considering applications. Right,
and that happened in this case?
It did.
Yes, and just we can take that very quickly. As a result of that, there was no objection on the basis of residential amenity in this case.
That's correct.
So that was we can take that to be an informed view following site visit. You talked to the officers and you both came to the conclusion that that was not an objection against this scheme.
We did, and we also requested additional visualizations to inform our opinion, and they were provided by the applicant. And then we agreed that that wasn't a key aspect of the objection.
Well, it's not an objection at all, is it, from the council's perspective?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you very much. And we can take it that when the officer wrote the report to panel, that's at CD 01120.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody wants to draw it up, I'm not going to take you specifically there, but that's the report. That was written in full knowledge of all the information that was available, including your consultation response. If you like, that was the composite, the synthesis of all the information that the officer had.
That's correct.
And it was a free rein for the council to produce reasons for objection that it wanted to.
Yes.
Okay. So could we look we could either look in that document, so CDO 1120, or indeed it's in your, that they are cited verbatim in your inquiry report on internal page 4. I think Mr. Cook's got them as well. There, it doesn't matter where we get them from. And I'd also like, just as a matter of factual reference, to look at the reasons for objection for Carrick and for Knockcronal, and we'll see these. So the Carrick report is CD 002 189. And it is at internal page 248. And then also for the Knockcronal scheme, I think that is CD 003 207. And it is at electronic page 131.
Sorry, Mr. Hardy, can you just give me that last reference? I was a wee bit behind there.
Yeah, no, actually, they're buried away in there. Although it looks as though it's one document, it's a sort of compendium of consultation responses, so they're very long. So the Knockcronal one is buried in that. It's CD 003 207. And then it is electronic page 131.
Thank you.
So just a point of reference, we can. I mean, if we just start with the Carrick reason for objection. This was dealt with by in cross-examination. But you can see under A, proposed development contrary to the development plan, criteria A, B, C, on the basis of significant adverse landscape and visual effects due to the scale and positioning of the proposed turbines on their own and in combination with other proposed application stage wind farms in the surrounding area. And then it's not considered that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects of this wind farm could be mitigated by reducing the size and or number of turbines, with the location being inappropriate given the sensitivity of nearby landscapes and designations. And there's no reason to depart from the local development plan. So you see that?
No, I do see that.
Yeah, and we could do the same exercise in Knockcronal. It's the same. It's the same point. And Mr. Fraser cross-examined you about that, and you made it very clear that it's not about mitigation. It's about the inappropriateness. Just look at. You can put both of those away. It was just to have a reference point for the reporters. If we can then look at the Craiginmoddie reasons for objection. What the officers have done is taken all of that information. They've got your landscape consultation response, and they come to this. The council resolves that on the basis of significant adverse landscape and visual effects due to the scale and positioning of the proposed turbines on their own and in combination with other proposed application stage wind farms in the surrounding area. That's the same wording exactly. But then it comes to this. It's considered that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects of this wind farm could be mitigated by reducing the size and or number of turbines. However, given the vertical height of the proposed turbines, the location is inappropriate. Given the sensitivity of nearby landscapes, no reason to depart from the South Ayrshire Local Development Plan policy. So I'm only interested really in what the council resolved about Craiginmoddie, but we can see differences there, can't we? First of all, that the council resolved that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects could be mitigated.
Yes.
And it says you can mitigate by reducing the size and or, so that it's not one, it's and or the number of turbines.
Yes.
And then how that's done is given more detail in the next sentence. So there's an and or, so size or number of turbines. But what the council does is plump this. However, given the vertical height of the proposed turbines, the location is inappropriate given the sensitivity of nearby landscapes. So you see it reduces down, doesn't it? That you can mitigate, first of all, in principle. You can do that one of two ways. You could reduce the size or number. And actually the way the council suggests this is inappropriate is solely by reason of the vertical height of the turbines. That's how that reason reads, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And we can see that we don't need to deal with 2 at the moment. 3, we can see it's the same wording. So beneath the identified viewpoints, it's considered that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects of this wind farm could be mitigated by reducing the size and number of turbines. So given the vertical height, the location of this proposal is inappropriate given the sensitivity of nearby landscapes. It's just the same point, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So it's height, isn't it? What the council did, took all this information in the round, and it resolved that it was exclusively by reason of height that the site was inappropriate.
That's correct, yes, principally.
Well, no, it's exclusively, isn't it? That is how the site is inappropriate, given the vertical height.
Yes, in terms of that wording, yes, but they do mention number of turbines as well in the preceding.
No, we've been over that. That's the general point. So they could be mitigated. Go back to 1, could be mitigated by reducing the size and or.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, so you've got a choice how you do that, but it's by reason. However, given the vertical height of the proposed turbines, the location is inappropriate. That's what they've chosen to do, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. You're not seeking to demur from that evidence. That is the council's position.
That's their position.
Okay. And there's the transcript which came in with following the cross-examination from Mr. Fraser is helpful in a number of ways. We'll come back to it. Can I just, I think you answered this in chief. You've had chance to read that. Obviously, that was your evidence given last week. You don't seek to move away from any of the answers given to those specific questions, do you?
No, of course I don't. That's an accurate recording of what I said. And I have always been clear that the capacity study does not fully accord with current guidance.
Yeah, it doesn't just do with the capacity study. We'll come back to that in a moment. The bit I'm interested in at the moment is in relation to the height of a commercially viable scheme. You accept that in 2023, that's about 200 metres, don't you?
I would say that I review a wide range of wind farm development proposals across Scotland, and currently the majority of them are 200 metres high, but I'm also at the moment reviewing a couple of wind farms that are closer to 149 metres high. Okay,
so 200 metres, that's the norm, and there's the answers given in relation to some specific questions in the transcripts, which we'll come back to here. Can we next just discuss aviation lighting? Because aviation lighting, in your answers to Mr. Fraser in relation to his scheme, was that was a secondary issue. It wasn't not unimportant, but I think it was at the end of the cross-examination you agreed it's a secondary issue, and principally your concern was that it might extend some of the significant effects into the evening.
That's correct, and I have been clear in my written evidence and probably in my oral evidence as well that I accept there would be likely to be fewer receptors, visual receptors, people around in the evening and overnight during hours of darkness be affected.
So can I just ask the same question in relation to Craiginmoddie, that we can classify as a sort of secondary concern, not saying it's not important, but it's a secondary issue here as well, isn't it?
It is.
just for completeness, the applicant has put in two documents in relation to visibility of aviation lighting. That's the WPAC report. That's at CD 1109. Whether you can confirm that you have read that.
Sorry, can you give me the reference again, Mr. Hyde, please?
CD 1 and then 109. That's the WPAC.
That document was not on your list of documents that you were going to refer to, was it?
It may, the Lumsden paper was. I think the WPAC report may be a new addition for the sake of completeness. If you want time to find it, just say.
And I don't think that was on there, so I'll need to just go to that.
Can I just check? Did you say 109?
109.
109.
That's where I was going wrong with the numbers.
Yes.
There you go. CD 1.
Yeah, it's on the CD. It's on the CD list. I have that.
Oh, sorry, I haven't downloaded that for some reason, so I'll need to just.
Don't worry.
CD. Right, yes, I do have that, and I have read that actually.
You have read that, thank you.
Yes.
And that you presumably read that, well, you must have read that before you wrote your advice to the council and also your inquiry report, and certainly before you give evidence today.
Yes.
Thank you. You could turn to page 19 in that document. And paragraph 35.
I have that.
Yeah, and you can see there's a conclusion there. Light will be regularly obscured by cloud, and when not obscured, it will be set at 200 candela for 98% of the time. Do you see that?
I do see that.
Yeah, and that's an agreed stat, is it? You council don't appear to have taken any technical evidence against the WPAC report.
No, they haven't.
Thank you very much. And the second of the technical documents in relation to lighting is the paper from Dr. Stuart Lumsden, and that is CD 9055.
Yes.
Again, have you read this report?
I have.
And you have nothing. I understand the council has no technical evidence to gainsay what Dr. Lumsden has to say.
No, they haven't.
Thank you very much. Paragraph 7.1 on page 13, if we may. So some conclusions there about visibility. and there's reference to the ZTV. Halfway through the paragraph, the locations nearest the proposed wind farm typically see faint lights because they view the turbines at steep elevation angles. Picking two nearby settlements with relatively low background light pollution, Bar and Cross Hill, WPAC, which we've looked at, show that observers there see lights typically of only 20 candela in good conditions, roughly equivalent to seeing a car brake light, typically 80 candela at 10 kilometres. So that's accepted by the council.
The council have made no comment on this.
Thank you very much. And then 7.7. So it's a sort of conclusions that bringing things together. They suggest that the locations where the lights in Craiginmoddie will be most visible are those locations within the dark sky park nearest the wind farm, the N7 being the location most likely to be accessed at night. But even there, as noted in paragraph 6.5, similarly only to the brightest stars, seen against background light domes, the effect will be reduced. And moving further into the dark sky park. But then it then deals with background lighting, and the penultimate sentence: only if the coastal region from Girvan to Ayr was under low cloud, but the wind farm of the dark sky park in the clear, would this background be reduced to nothing. But the meteorological data for Prestwick suggests such occasions are likely to be rare. It's far more likely that the coast is clear and that the Merrick uplands in cloud, given their altitude. Again, nothing to gainsay what is said there. So when you look at those two reports, we've dealt with this, I think, in other inquiries, that you can put a metric to this. There are statistics 95% of the time, or whatever else it is. Can we agree this, that the vast majority of the time there is going then light is going to be attenuated either by atmospheric conditions or indeed by control?
That is a possibility. I mean, that is a theory because it's based on records, but I think certainly in terms of landscape and visual matters, you would need to take the worst case scenario. So accepting that there would be a fair bit of time, given the location of the wind farm in the west of Scotland, that there would be times when you wouldn't see the lights. You have to assess the worst case.
Yes, which is what we've done. We've got the statistics there. The council doesn't produce any evidence to gainsay it. And having taken all of that evidence into account, we've agreed that's a secondary issue for the Craiginmoddie scheme.
It is.
Thank you. In relation to automatic detection, so ADLS, there was a question that was put by the reporter at the end of Mr. Cook's evidence to him, and it was along these lines. Look, well, if you've got one scheme that's potentially signed up to an ADLS scheme, what's the impact of that? Does that decrease potential significance or does that increase significance? Do you recall that question at the end of yesterday's? Yeah. Have you seen the conditions that are proposed by the Craiginmoddie applicant for this scheme?
I haven't, no.
And you're certainly very welcome to look at them, but the condition that's offered is exactly the same as the one that was at Narracon at the other scheme across season recently in relation to this. That is that if ADLS is reasonably practicable, then the applicant agrees to sign up to that and implement it as soon as possible. So in other words, it's not an objection to ADLS from the applicant, and if it works for one scheme, then this applicant will also adopt that as well. So on that basis, there would be a benefit, wouldn't there? Because if one scheme's got ADLS, then Craiginmoddie would have ADLS.
That would be a benefit, and I think Mr. Cook and I are one with that. He did recognise that there would be an improvement if there was an ADLS scheme in operation, and I think it would help resolve some of the issues about cumulative effects of tall turbines across South Ayrshire and beyond being lit.
So the point I'm getting at is it's not an objection somehow that one scheme thinks that it's the right thing to do and another scheme doesn't. The objection that's taken by this applicant is that, well, technically that's not available at the moment, but if it is, then one scheme gets it, then Craiginmoddie will absolutely adopt it, and then we're all, everyone's happy. So there won't be an incongruity based on that condition, will there? It won't be that one's got it, one hasn't, and you have to judge whether or not that discordance is a problem. If one's got it, then Craiginmoddie will have it too.
That would seem that's if that's what's in the conditions. And as I said, I haven't looked at the conditions, but that would be a good thing. Yes.
We're going to do with aviation conditions at the at another session, but it's there to see that is the condition which is proposed. So we will be early adopters of ADLS if that comes along. So thank you very much for all of those answers. Where that takes us to is this. It's a secondary issue, but it's also an issue that would apply to any turbine pursuant to the air navigation order that's over 150 metres tall, wouldn't it?
It would.
So if it's a secondary issue, it isn't just for 200 metre to tip turbines. It would be for anything over that 150 metre threshold. On the basis of your answers, that can't be the reason for the site being unacceptable in principle, can it?
It isn't the principal reason, no.
Well, it can't be the reason for the site being inappropriate due to reason of height of turbines, can it? It's a secondary issue for all the reasons we've
indicated. It's a secondary issue in relation to the key issue is the size of the turbines in that location, that specific site.
Right. But we're looking at the individual components of that. We know it's not to do with residential amenity because the council looked carefully at that. So it's nothing to do with overbearing or overdominant. That's not that. And the height objection in principle isn't to do with aviation lighting either, is it?
It isn't. It isn't principally, no.
Well, principally, or it's not, is it? For the reasons we've just given, it's a secondary issue.
No, it's correct to say it's not. It is mentioned in the reasons for designation, and it is mentioned as an advantage to mitigation in terms of reducing the heights of the turbines, but it is really the daytime effects of the turbines that are the issue here.
Thank you very much. So that's down to one issue, it seems to me, and that is the height. So the height of the turbines in a, at the moment, let's just call it a broad landscape and visual context. So we've got the technical issues kind of fall away. That's not the reason for inappropriateness. This the host landscape area, the host LCT, that's not an objection either, is it? It's not an objection in principle.
No,
to
it is accepted that it's a less sensitive landscape in terms of accommodating large wind turbines.
One of the questions that you were asked by Mr. Fraser in his cross-examination, and we can go to the documents if you want to, but you might not need to, was the deletion of the first bullet point under the opportunities section in the 2013 capacity study, and the when you look at the that in comparison to the 2018 capacity study. I don't know whether you remember that question.
I do remember that question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the answer that you gave. So this is under 17C, just so everybody can follow a point. It's so in the 2013 version of the capacity study, it is internal page 13.
Could you just give me the CD number, Mr. Hardy, please, just so everybody's on the same document?
I can. It is 9002. That's
Thank
the
you.
2013 version, and then 9001 is the 2018 update.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Hardy, the page number
Is page, it's internal page 13,
was 13, right?
13, and it's paragraph 17.2.3, where it's headed opportunities. That's what I've got. This is the 2013 version to start with.
Sorry, paragraph.
17.2.3, and it's headed opportunity.
Sorry, did you say page 13 or did you?
1.3.
Oh, I don't think that's not on this. That doesn't seem to be coming up on this document.
No, I've got the same. It only takes me to paragraph 2.6.3.
Yes.
Yes.
I've got the paper copy. I am looking at the South Ayrshire Landscape Wind Capacity Study, main study report, July 2013. And I mean, if it's a short point, if I can put, because it was, you were asked this question by Mr. Fraser, and I just want to follow up on it. In that document.
Sorry, Mr. Harden, I'm just checking it. I think that references to the appendix to report.
Could be. Could be.
So I think that's Mr. Fraser's nodding because he's appeared to maybe give us the reference number, Mr.
Yes.
Fraser.
We have a main report that we're looking at.
There you go. So it might be, it's under the section dealing with the different areas. So I don't know whether you've.
17.
Sorry, Mr. Hardy. Sorry, can I just pause for a moment? Mr. Fraser's got his hand up, just to make sure I've heard him properly. Sorry. You can just bear with me a moment. Mr. Fraser, we're not hearing it. I'm not sure if you've got your mic on, but it's very, very quiet. Sorry.
I'm sorry, sir. It's page 77, electronic page 77, if that helps people. And I don't know, I've tried to put my hand down, but it's not going down. Oh, that's gone down.
It's down. It's down now. We're okay. Right, page 77 is the correct number of that document, CD 9002 and 17.2.3 opportunities. I have that.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson, do you have that as well? Just so we're all on the same page.
Yes.
We're all good to. Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Good to go. A bit of an anticlimax, really. Now, so 17.2.3 in under opportunities, you can see the generally simple landform and land cover of this upland landscape. When you compare that with the treatment in the 2018 update, so that goes back to CD001. And opportunities, which is 18.2.3, and I've got that on the paper document as internal page 161.
The electronic page is different. If you just bear with me while I scroll through to.
Yes.
It's 184 electronic, Mr.
184.
184. Thank you. Yep, I'm there now.
Thank you. Right, you'll see the obvious point is that opportunity, that we find in the 2013 version has been deleted from the 2018 version. Now, in the question that you were asked by Mr. Fraser, you said you didn't know, and I just wondered in the last week whether or not you have gone back to consider why that it seems to me quite important reference to opportunity and sensitivity of the landscape was removed.
I did say I didn't know. It was a long time ago, 2013. In terms of this document, the update 2018, I did also say in my cross-examination that I thought it might have been because we were trying to condense and reduce the text in the document because we were trying to put both documents in together, including the tables. But in re-examination, I did note that the simple landform and vegetation pattern land cover is mentioned in 18.2, the summary of sensitivity. So it is there. And I think it's also implied by that single bullet point under opportunities, which does talk about shallow basins and lower hills, which are generally simpler in that landscape.
I mean, it'd be deletion of one sentence. I'm not sure that reduction in the length of the document is going to make much.
Well, it's a cumulative thing, Mr. Hardy. If you do it across the whole document, which is quite a large document, it does work.
Yeah.
And you will know that from editing documents.
I do. Those questions emanated from your answer that there's no objection in principle to this site, and the reason for that was because it was less sensitive. And what I was going to suggest was that ties in with that wording about opportunity in the 2013 study, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay. And it sounds as though even when you had your review, it wasn't an intention to, in substance, remove that bullet point in relation to opportunity by reason of lower sensitivity. In fact, it could have been kept in the 2018 version from what you've just said.
Well, in the 2018 version, it is acknowledged in the summary of sensitivity. It's there.
Yes.
It's acknowledging that it's a lower sensitivity landscape because of its simple landform and land cover.
Yeah. So could we agree this? It's not in the text, but you'd have no objection if it was read across. So that bullet point for opportunities, let's just say people are less concerned about the length of the document. You could put that bullet point into 18.2.3, couldn't you?
You could.
Okay. That's helpful. So the other points about the capacity study, I am just going to leave to the to the transcript, and I want to deal only with the issue of Hadyard Hill and some of the assumptions. And to do this, I want to pick up a few references. And if we've got page 161 still open, we can start there.
Sorry, 161 of
2018, so where we were, so 18 point
CD 9.1.
18.3.
Okay.
So on the same page.
Yes.
You can see that you have constraints, then you have opportunities, and then it goes to guidance for development. And in the third paragraph down under 18.3.1, you can see additional turbines sited adjacent to existing wind farms could also undermine the design integrity of existing well-sited developments. This could occur where, for example, the original wind farm is sited in a shallow basin within the interior foothills and where the containment provided by landform is breached by additional development, thus presenting a clearly different association with landform than the original wind farm. Differences in turbine size and spacing could contribute to this effect. Just a couple of points coming from that. You consider Hadyard Hill to be well sited?
I think it's generally well cited.
Thank you very much. And there's been no call in this case for the reasons we've indicated, or there's been no criticism of the design of this wind farm, the formatting or the layout. That's not your concern?
Well, my inquiry report, I do comment on the design. In terms of the spacing of the turbines, I don't have an issue with that. Okay. But I do have an issue with their location on high points in the landscape and the size of the turbines, which we've been through before. Yeah,
well, it's that high point. Yep. But in terms of spacing, no. Right. Then we get to 18.3.2, repowering of operational and consented wind farms. So the Hadyard Hill wind farm largely occupies a shallow basin which is screened in part by higher hills located on the edges of these foothills. Existing turbines in this development are 110 metres high, and there may be some limited scope to replace these with larger turbines, providing that impacts on the Girvan and Stincher valleys are not significantly exacerbated. See that?
Mhm.
They need to go back in the document to, there are a number of references to Hadyard Hill throughout this document, but I'm interested in 3.2.2.
What page number is that, Mr. Hardy?
That
Sorry.
is internal page 13. That's of the paper copy.
Right.
So 3.2.2, it's internal page 21. Electronic copy is 21, I'm told.
Thank you.
Do you have that?
I do have that, thank you.
So we'll come to Annex D, where the more detailed parts of this study were, or the results of it are shown. But to introduce this repowering of operational consented wind farms, an assessment has been undertaken to consider the scope for accommodating 150 and 200 metre turbines as part of repowering or amending operational consented wind farms. Just as an aside, both the 150 and the 200 metre turbines that would be assumed would add aviation lighting, wouldn't they?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Mr. Hardy?
3.2.2. So
Yes.
an assessment has been undertaken to consider the scope for accommodating 150 metre and 200 metre turbines. You see that? Yeah.
Yes.
Just as an aside, both 150 and 200 metre turbines would require aviation lighting.
They would, yes.
Thank you. So that was written into the into that exercise. So third paragraph, you'll see the Hadyard Hill, Trelorg and Assal Valley wind farms lie in a relatively narrow band of uplands. Any increases in turbine heights are likely to adversely affect character and views within the Girvan and or Stincher valleys, which lie either side. Both the Trelorg and Assal Valley wind farms are located on well-defined hills which lie close to Girvan and the coast, unlike Hadyard Hill wind farm, which is located in a simpler undulating plateau, which is partially screened by higher hills on the periphery of these uplands. So replacing the Assal Valley and Trelorg wind farm sites with the larger turbines would be likely to significantly exacerbate effects on the setting of Girvan and the coast, views from surrounding roads and settlements, and on the character of these more prominent hills. So of the three, Hadyard Hill is the at least sensitive location, and there's a distinction, isn't there, drawn between potential 150 to 200 metre turbines between Hadyard Hill, Trelorg and Assal Valley.
Correct.
Thank you. If you go to Annex D, so that is on internal page 231. Do you have that?
Not yet, sorry.
Okay.
Electronic page 260.
Thank you. I do have that, yes, thank you.
Here we can see the detail of the repowering background study, and this fed into that summary that we've just read. I'm opening it up really for completeness because there's quite a lot of detail in here, and where Annex D leads is to internal page 244, which is the summary and conclusion. So that's paper copy 244.
Yes, I have that, Mr. Harding.
Conclusions are then bullet pointed under review of comparison height ZTVs, and it's the 5th bullet point down is the first reference to Hadyard Hill here. So we've got larger turbines within the Mark Hill, Arclear and Hadyard Hill wind farm sites could increase visibility within the Stincher Valley, and the Dusk Valley could also be affected by additional visibility associated with larger turbines within the Arclear and Mark Hill wind farms. There's then other references under the next subheading, review of height comparison visualizations, over the page 245. 3rd bullet point down. Hadyard Hill and Assal Valley wind farms line a relatively narrow band of hills, and any increases in turbine heights are likely to adversely affect character and views within the Girvan and or Stincher valleys. And then we can see again a bit of differentiation in the case of the Assal Valley wind farm along the coast south of Girvan. Yeah.
Yes.
We can also pick up a reference to the lighting point, which you've already answered, but page 246. You can see lighting wind turbines over 150 metres high. The effects of lighting of wind turbines over 150 metres high has been considered in more detail in the sensitivity assessments. Key sensitivities are the dark skies parks, effects on the Merrick wildland area, and so on. So that just confirms the point we've already got to, that was taken into account. So Annex D is a comprehensive look at repowering. The summary we've seen at 3.3.2, and if we could then go back to the guidance for development for this LCT, paragraph 18.3.2.
Not there yet, sorry.
Okay, no, don't worry. Yeah.
18.3.2, page 161.
Yes.
That's electronic page 184.
Thank you. Well, that.
So 18.3.2, taking all of those matters into account, with Hadyard Hill, the view was taken that there's maybe some limited scope to replace those with larger turbines, providing that impacts on the Girvan and Stincher valleys are not significantly exacerbated. So the larger turbines are in that 150 to 200 category. They're going to include aviation lighting, and actually, relative to, say, Assal Valley, Hadyard Hill was seen as being less sensitive, wasn't it, in terms of a repowering exercise?
It was, yes.
So,
but it should also be stated that it's acknowledged in the report that repowering generally involves fewer turbines, fewer larger turbines. So that would have been factored into.
Yes, but of course we're dealing with height. That's the concern in relation to Craiginmoddie. If there's a reduction in number, so be it. So having looked at that, one of the points that Mr. Cook was making was about timescales.
Mm-hmm.
So Hadyard Hill is due to be decommissioned in 2031, albeit that a developer might not wait that long. Actually, they might come back with an application for repowering before then. But in any event, 2031 is the decommissioning date, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you. And the applicant, in this case, Craiginmoddie, is going to contribute towards the 2030 target, and the suggested power operational point is 2029.
Yes.
So in terms of a design congruity point, if that's what the council is getting at in relation to height, the overlap, for the reason given by Mr. Cook, is for a very short period in time, in a time sense, isn't it? It's going to be potentially a couple of years.
Well, if that occurs, yes. So that's theoretical. Though I thought it was a valid point. But having said that, it's not just about design incongruity in terms of the relationship between Hadyard Hill wind farm and this proposal that the council are concerned about. It's about the height of the proposed turbines, which is exacerbated by the significantly increased elevation of those turbines in relation to adjacent wind farms. And that increases its intrusion on more sensitive landscapes.
Yeah, well, can we agree with this, that let's take that in stages. All things being equal, Hadyard Hill comes along with repowering. Your guidance tells us, well, that's actually, you know, it's well located. There's sort of greater capacity there for repowering than in most other places. So you might be looking at a commercially viable scheme, say 200 meters. So to that extent, if the turbines at Hadyard Hill were raised to 200 meters, there would be a benefit, wouldn't there, or a reduction in any perceived design incongruity by reason of a height differential?
No, the height differential would still exist because there's about 100 meters approximately differential between the two sites. So
yeah,
they would still look significantly larger within this proposal.
Well, that's AOD, but in terms of the height of the turbines, then if you were perceiving if you are a turbine spod, you might go, well, look, that's a first generation turbine and that's a fourth generation turbine. That point would be removed, wouldn't it? They would look similar in terms of
they would look more similar, but they wouldn't look similar in terms of the degree of intrusion from key viewpoints. And this is because the siting of the Hadyard Hill wind farm in a shallow basin results in the bases of the turbines being fairly screened from key viewpoints. For example, Mr. Reed, from the Cornish Hill viewpoint, and you really just see there's quite a lot of screening of the upright, the towers of the turbines within Hadyard Hill, whereas this proposal is sited at a higher AOD, and you do see from top to bottom the full kind of extent, largely, of the turbines.
Yeah, but of course, if the turbines at Hadyard Hill were increased to 200 meters, then that point isn't so strong, is it, in relation to Hadyard Hill, because the turbines there would be taller.
They would be taller, but you would still get that differential, and I think it would be marked.
So there, the problem for the council is this: the site is where it is. If it's suggesting that you would need to reduce the height of the Craiginmoddie turbines, you couldn't do that, could you, to have a matching AOD, because you would have an unviable scheme.
I'm sorry, you need to rephrase that. I'm not.
Yes.
So
what you're saying is that it's not just the height of the machines themselves. What you've got to do is take into account the height's AOD, because you've got So if the turbines at Hadyard Hill would say 200 meters high, your point is yes, but the starting point for Craiginmoddie is the higher AOD. So if you were looking for similar heights overall, you'd have to reduce the height, wouldn't you, of the Craiginmoddie turbines by a very considerable degree.
Sorry, are you meaning a similar height overall in terms of repowering Hadyard Hill?
Yes,
but it does depend on the heights of the turbines in a repowered, a theoretical repowered Hadyard Hill scheme.
Of course it does, but what we've agreed, and certainly the assumption in the study, was 150 to 200 meters. I'm going to suggest that it's very likely to be 200 meters. So in that event, if the council was going, the problem still remains because Craiginmoddie is at a higher elevation, the way you would potentially sort that out is by making the Craiginmoddie turbine shorter. But you'd have to do that to a degree whereby we'd agree you wouldn't have a viable scheme at Craiginmoddie. That's the problem, isn't it?
You're talking in a theoretical manner, really, because with Hadyard Hill, we don't have a proposal in front of us for repowering. The capacity study is a strategic study, as we all acknowledge. It doesn't look at the detail and how a repowering scheme would look in the round. The work that was done looking at repowering was based on a very limited number of visualizations, comparative visualizations, and it is acknowledged that it has limitations. With Hadyard Hill at the moment, I think there are 52 turbines. They're 110 meters high, I think. I would imagine that a repowering scheme, if it did come up for that development, there would be a reduction in the turbine number, and there would be relocation of turbines. So you would have to look at it in detail to be able to do that comparison of how it would look in terms of your proposal, and how it would look from key viewpoints and what the relationship would be between the two.
Yeah, of course, a number of points flowing from that. If Craiginmoddie is granted consent and the view of the reporters is taken, yeah, no, we don't have anything certain, but all things being equal, a repowering exercise is likely to take place. Craiginmoddie then gets constructed. Of course, it would be for the designers of the Hadyard Hill repowering exercise, wouldn't it, to come up with a congruent scheme that the council's happy with.
Yes,
So it would be them looking at Craiginmoddie. It would be that way round.
Of course it would, yes.
Thank you. Second point is that we can look at the maps if you want, but there are height differences within Hadyard Hill of more than 100 metres. So within that scheme, the heights AOD vary to the degree that you consider to be a problem between Hadyard and Craiginmoddie, don't they?
Yes, but it's the base height. It's the base height over and above the site level in Hadyard Hill that is the issue. It is overall more elevated within your proposal.
I don't quite understand that, because the base heights within, let's just be clear, the base heights within Hadyard Hill vary, don't they, by up to 100 metres within the Hadyard site. So the position of the turbines. They
do, but they're still generally significantly lower than the base heights within of the turbines within your proposal.
Yes, but you aren't objecting in principle to the Craiginmoddie site. So it's the height of the turbines that's the problem.
It's the height of the turbines, which is exacerbated by the AOD of those turbines.
Okay, so that deals with the sort of design congruity point as far as we can. Taking all those points in the round, so we're just looking at height. What sort of height would be acceptable to you advising the council for the Craiginmoddie scheme?
I haven't tested that, and I think that is clear in it's not being specified in my advice to the council, because that needs to be tested. Again, I'll go back to the differences between an LVIA and a strategic capacity study. It would need to be based on a number of visualizations and testing, ZTVs, etc., and looking at views in the round, and particularly key views from the Stinchard Valley, the Girvan Valley, and from the High Carrick Hills. They would be the key design viewpoints to test what size the turbines what would be optimum in terms of achieving meaningful mitigation.
Well, let's just put some points together, and then we might take a 5 minute break. So where we've got to is there's no objection to the site in principle. It's height that's the cause for concern. It's not height in relation to residential amenity. It's not height in relation to aviation lighting. I think we can also agree that you don't find any significant effects on the Girvan valley in relation to the SQs,
The
the special quality.
yes, with the in terms of the local landscape area, no.
Yep. So height is not in relation to impacts on the Girvan Valley. We'll come back to the.
Sorry. In respect, height is an issue in terms of views from the Girvan Valley.
Well, all right. We're going to go on to the LLAs perhaps after we've had a break. But in terms of the special qualities of the Girvan Valley, you don't find any impact on those, do you? So therefore, however height is taken into account, you didn't get to a point of finding significant effects on those SQ.
That's right.
Thank you very much. And we've dealt with the congruity points with Hadyard as far as I need to do. So thank you very much. Helpful, Sanderson. I'm going to suggest that we just take a 5-minute break there, and then I'll come back to deal with LLAs. I've got about 40 minutes left, I would suggest.
Okay, I was just going to ask whether you were pre-appropriate to take a break. I would suggest maybe we take 10 minutes and start at 11 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see everybody back at 11. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the time is now 11 o'clock, and I think if everybody is back, we'll just wait on Miss Anderson. Okay, I think all the relevant parties are back. So, Mr. Hardy, if you would like to continue, please.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sanderson. So we're now going to move into the sort of LCT, LLA points, but I'm going to take these pretty quickly as well because there's a high level of agreement. In relation to the LCTs, first of all, I think we've already agreed that the foothills with forest and wind farms LCT, no significant effects. That's the host landscape LCT.
Well, there are significant effects, but they are, accepting that all wind farms will have significant adverse effects, they're not a key cause of concern with council.
Yeah. That's very fair. Just in relation to that point, in the cross-examination from Mr. Fraser, there was discussion about localized effects. I think you gave 10 kilometers, something like that, as the outer or the threshold or the typical threshold.
No, I didn't say a threshold, actually. I said that it's debatable and there are lots of opinions on what constitutes a localized effect. I consider it's not about extent of effect. That's one factor. I consider it's also about the nature of effects that should be considered. Yes.
We had there's a discussion about that. There's a disagreement, as you know. It was reference, you were, I think, listening to the session. There's the Latin etymology and definition that localized is in relation to place. It's about containment and a geographic point. That's our point. You want to suggest, I think, that there is reference to the seriousness or the gravity of the effect, don't you, in that?
I do, yes.
Yeah, we disagree with that. Just, and that's a matter for submissions. In terms of place, then, if it was a geographic extent, you aren't presumably demurring from your evidence, which suggested 10K?
I put forward that was the extent of effects of the majority of wind farm developments that I'm reviewing at present. So those are wind farms that are comprising 150 to 200 metre high turbines. They're perhaps usually fewer than 30 turbines. But that seems to me to be the extent of significant landscape and visual effects that seem to be common to the majority of wind farms that I'm reviewing in terms of extent.
Thank you. And again, we've got your evidence in relation to that on the transcript. Intimate Pastoral Valleys LCT SA13. There's no physical part of the wind farm located within that LCT.
I agree.
The significant effects, I think, extending to about 3 to 5 kilometres, I think we say.
I would need to check that in my inquiry report, but I think that sounds about right.
Okay, I think viewpoint 1 is a good example for that. And can we agree remaining part of the valley would not be significantly affected, so beyond that 3 to 5K range?
That's correct. In my evidence, I've said that to the west of Bar, the effects decrease, so they would not be significant.
Thank you. Then Middledale, then SA12. Again, no wind turbines in that LCT. That's part of the access track, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Significant effects identified. I think if you wanted to look at this, it's viewpoint 3 from Daly. And I think it's Ruglan as well, which is viewpoint 4. But the significant effects about 4.5K, something like that?
No, that's not correct. It depends on what effects you're talking about. Is it visual or landscape?
In terms of landscape.
Right. Well, if it's landscape, it's not really about the representative viewpoints. And in fact, the LVIA looks at groups of visual receptors, not specific viewpoints. But in terms in terms of the reporters, if they there is a comparison within Annex B of my inquiry report, which sets out where the differences are. And I think certainly within the Middledale, I think I considered that the extent of effects would be up to approximately 7 kilometres.
Can you just give me a page number?
Yes,
Mr.
Reid, yes, I'll just, sorry, I'll just find that for you. Sorry, I was incorrect. It wasn't 7 kilometres, it was 6 kilometres, Mr. Reid, and it's actually paragraph 5.20 of my inquiry report.
Yeah, I have that. Thank you.
Rugged uplands, lochs and forests LCT SA 21, again wind farm located outside that LCT. What we're saying, moderate effect, not significant. I think you can go to viewpoint 9 Cornish Hill if you wanted, but agreed. Moderate effects not significant on the LCT.
That's what's agreed. That's what's stated in the LVIA, but I disagree with that. And the reporters will find that in paragraph 5.28 of my inquiry report, where I consider that that the effects would be major, moderate, and significant.
Okay, right, they're the LCTs. I want to spend more time on the LLAs because 90% of the evidence yesterday and 90% of the cross-examination seemed to be on this. So the landscape designation review, that's CD 9013.
You'd like to go to that, Mr. Hodge?
Yes, I would. Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, which page number?
Well, I'm just at the, I haven't given you a page number yet.
Oh, sorry.
No, just gearing up to ask you a question about this. There's lots of, well, there's lots of debate. There's 3 hours of cross-examination on it yesterday, and I'm just going to try and cut through this. The way the document is set out, or what the document is purporting to do, is explained, it seems to me, on internal page 10. So that's paragraph 4.1. So where it says statements of importance.
Yeah, it's page 10. Oh, sorry, page 20,
20, yeah.
electronic.
Page 20 electronically, yeah.
Yes.
So what we're told is statements of importance produced for each of these candidate LLAs. These are called with the SNH HS guidance in being structured to initially explain the boundary selected for the candidate area and to summarize the reasons for designation of the area. And then a fuller description of the character and special qualities of the candidate LLA is then provided. And this, together with the reasons for designation, should be used to inform any decision on development which may be adversely or which may adversely affect the designated landscape. So in each of these examples, which we'll go to, the 2 parts, there's a broader part summarizing reasons for designation. And then you've got the next section, which is purporting to set out character and special qualities. Yeah.
Yes.
So just a straightforward reading of that would be to suggest that all of the matters that are in the character and special qualities parts of this document, and if you wanted to turn to say the stincher. So that's on internal page 28. Paper page 28, area F.
Yes.
You've got the two parts, haven't you? What we're told is, well, location and boundaries, that's factual. Then we've got reasons for designation. We're told that that is summary of the reasons for designation. So that's your paragraph 4.1. And then
Yes.
after that, a fuller description of the character and special qualities of the candidate LA is then provided. There is no distinction between the what parts are purely descriptive and those which are intended to be special qualities. So the precautionary way of reading this would be that all of that text can be taken to be special qualities, can't we? We don't want to miss anything. So precautionary way.
Yes, you need to read all of it.
So that's exactly what the applicant has done. There is no, Mr. Cook has done it in his evidence. There isn't. It would have been helpful, do you agree, if something different had been intended to separate out description of character and then list special qualities. That would have been an obvious thing to do, but you didn't do it.
We didn't do it. I don't think it was necessarily an obvious thing to do, and it does accord with guidance. So the statements of importance do accord with the guidance, both the guidance that was principally used at the time, but also the updated guidance from HES and H.S. Scott. So the information is there. Some descriptions or some statements of importance do separate out special qualities. I acknowledge that, but others don't.
Yeah.
For local landscape designations.
We've got what we've got. Can we just agree that a sensible way of reading this is or a precautionary way of reading this is to look at all of those paragraphs below description of character and special qualities and deal with all of them?
Yes, and I think Mr. Cook, and I think in his evidence yesterday, he had done that. It was not done in the LVIA, but his evidence yesterday, he had looked at that, and I think there was a degree of overlap. We were kind of in agreement of the key special qualities for the LVIAs.
A number of points that I couldn't understand why we spent so long in cross-examination, and that's obviously for Mr. Armstrong. We're dealing with the evidence now, aren't we? So whatever the LVIA did, Mr. Cook has dealt with that on a precautionary basis. There may be differences in view, but that's the evidence now.
Differences in view between the LVIA
between you and him. Between you and him. The point is, we've not missed anything. The evidence is the evidence as of the 22nd of June 23. Mr. Cook has dealt with all of the material and all of the.
You will understand that it's very difficult to comment on that when it's not in written form. It was not in his inquiry report. It was just in his oral evidence yesterday. So the council had no prior information on that. It was only came out in Mr. Armstrong's cross-examination of Mr. Cook yesterday that there was some agreement between us on the special qualities affected.
Well, we disagree.
We didn't have that information prior to that.
Well, we disagree with that characterisation, and we'll deal with that in submission. But the point being, the evidence that we have today, that's where the reporters need to go down. And there's no disagreement in relation to where we find the description of special qualities. There is a difference in view between you and Mr. Cook as to how they may be impacted.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Of course, the policy situation, the governing policy regime at the time this document was undertaken, it was pre-MPF 4 and OWPS.
Yes.
There's no mention, is there, in relation to, as you would expect, no reference to integrity?
No, and that wouldn't be appropriate in a document such as this. This is setting out this the boundaries, the evaluation process, and the statements of importance. It doesn't go into policy. That's for the council to take up.
Yes, not to matter
the LDP or whatever.
Yeah, so obviously policy is not a matter for you, but you are very familiar with these matters. I know. So I just want to ask about LLAs and whether or not you see LLAs as a sort of bar in principle, or are there LLAs within the council area where you could see there being an acceptable commercially viable wind farm?
I couldn't, I'm afraid, because I think they are the very best of South Ayrshire's landscapes, and they're intended as that. The review, as part of the review that you've heard in my evidence to this inquiry through cross-examination, we have honed in on the most special landscapes across South Ayrshire, and it's a substantially reduced locally designated area than what it was before. So I think in terms of the special qualities and the character of the LLAs that have been defined, I don't think any of those landscapes would be appropriate for a commercial wind farm development. Right.
So your view at the moment is that LLAs, certainly in landscape terms, I'm not talking in terms of policy, but in your remit, your view is LLAs are incompatible with commercial wind farm development.
I'm talking about South Ayrshire's LLA.
Yes, South Ayrshire. In your knowledge, yeah. No, South Ayrshire's. We just asked a question. Let's be really clear. So South Ayrshire's LLAs, within your remit, your view is LLAs are incompatible with commercial wind farm development.
Within South Ayrshire, yes.
Thank you. It's very clear. Just help me with something before we go back to that document to look at the LLAs in a bit more detail. Could you go back to the capacity study? So this is CD 009001.
Yes, I have that.
Thank you. And back to the this time it's part 14, which is the character type 13, the intimate pastoral valleys. That's internal page 115.
Yes, I have that.
Thank you. So we can see at 14.1 on page 115, the character type applies to the stincher, and then distributing the dusk in the upper reaches of the water of the Gurn Valley in South Ayrshire. So that's the sort of area we're dealing with. Then we've got the tables on 2 pages over. So page 116, character type 13, we've got the sensitivity assessment for large and medium typologies. You see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Middle column, then assessment of large typology. That's the 70 meter plus.
Yes.
And then on page 118, perceptual qualities. You can see for that large typology under perceptual qualities, the absence of a strong sense of wildness reduces sensitivity, although turbines of this size would be very large and could be perceived as introducing industrial elements into these distinctly rural valleys. And you've got just it's medium sensitivity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So not high, it's medium for large typology in the stincher.
That particular criterion was really principally looking at wildness, sense of naturalness.
Okay.
These are settled valleys, so they don't fall in that category.
Okay, visual amenity, just for a moment. Next one down, turbines of the size highly visible, close proximity from settlements and roads, multiple turbines throughout the valleys would be intervisible, and then turbines of this size would be likely to interrupt containing skylines, may also affect views to landmark hills. There would also be cumulative visual effects with existing wind farms. Just as a point there, we don't have landmark hills, do we? Craiginmoddie isn't affecting any landmark hills as identified.
There are landmark hills in the vicinity, but I don't consider that there would be a significant effect on those.
That's very fair. So you turn then to guidance for development. 14.3, it's internal page 123. So we can see guidance found no scope for the large and medium typologies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then small to medium typologies can in principle relate to the simpler land farm, very limited scope. I'm interested in the next page, which is page 124. The assessment found there to be some limited scope for the small topology, 15 to 30 metres, with increased opportunities for multiple turbines to be better accommodated in this character type. Turbines should avoid the open floor of these valleys, instead being sited on gentler slopes and broader terraces on the valley sides. And then smaller turbines, 15 metres, and what should be associated with farms and other buildings to minimise visual cluster. The more extensive and open upper valley sides offer scope for turbines between 20 and 30 metres. So that on the refresh in 2018, within the Stincher Valley, you were identifying, weren't you, capacity on the more extensive and open upper valley sides, the turbines 20 to 30 metres thick.
I made it clear in my answers to you that I was talking about a commercial scale wind farm. I wasn't talking about smaller turbines such as these, which are more related to farms or individual buildings. It's quite a different matter.
Well, not really, because it's a matter of importance. I'd have thought that 30 metre, 100-foot high turbines, you think actually there is capacity for those in the Stincher Valley itself. And that was your view, having reviewed this in 2018.
Yes, and I think that's true, and I stand by that. But I was quite clear that I was talking about a commercial wind farm development.
Yeah.
That, I think, was your question. It was about commercial wind farm development, which, as you have earlier acknowledged, is more likely to be 200 metres, 150 to 200 metre high turbines. That's quite a different matter.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The differentiation between different scales of turbines and what may be commercially viable is a really important point. But in visual terms or in landscape character impact terms, 100-foot high turbine, it might be multiple 100-foot turbines, 30-metre turbines. You were indicating could be accommodated successfully within the Stincher Valley, within the LLA.
I'm saying not necessarily in the Stincher Valley. There are a number of valleys within this landscape character type. This is a landscape character type, remember, not the LLA itself.
So
particularly the more extensive and open upper valley sides. There are some within the Stincher Valley, but they are principally in the Dusk Valley, which is in the LLA. And I just don't see that there's any way of equating a 20 to 30 metre high turbine with a 200 metre high commercial wind farm development, which will have multiple turbines.
I'm not seeking to do that, Miss Anderson. What I'm interested in is what would be acceptable. I just want to understand your answers there. Are you saying when you drew these development consideration, or the guidance, that actually you were seeking to exclude the Stincher Valley from 14.3. Because it seems to me that the Stincher...
And that at all. I'm just pointing out for the reporter's benefit that this document relates to a landscape character type which has a number of different valleys in it. It's not just the Stincher Valley.
Of course. So let's be clear. In the Stincher Valley, in the LLA, I mean, you know, where that's congruous with this LCT, and there's an overlap, as we know, you are of the view today that there would be capacity for turbines between 20 to 30 metres on the open upper valley sides in the Stincher. That
Yes.
remains your view, does it?
Yes, that is my view.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note that it says the more extensive and open upper valley sides.
Yeah.
So that's quite different from, and there are a number of caveats to that, not to locate smaller turbines on the open valley floor, for example. So I don't see that there is any conflict in what I have said about the LLA before.
Well, I'll make my submissions on that. Thank you. Let's turn back then to the designations review. That's the 9013. And it's an interesting table where you summarize the kind of qualification exercise for inclusion, the evaluation tables. I think it's called Annex B, Detailed Phase 1 Evaluation Tables, which is on internal page 54.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Sorry, 54 was that?
54 it starts, yeah. That's paper. That's same issue. That's the paper version. Internal page 54.
Page 75, electronic.
Oh yes, sorry.
Very,
thank you.
I'm very grateful. So this sets out the evaluative exercise, and 17C, foothills with forest and wind farms. LCT 17C we can see on internal page 67. Paper 67.
Yes, I have that, Mr. Hardy.
It's a low. We can see. I'm not going to go through all of the other areas. This just scrapes in, doesn't it? It's a low scoring LCT. Even the ones on this page, you can see the Maybole foothills, for instance, medium, high, whatever. 17C, we've got low rarity, medium scenic qualities, medium enjoyment, low cultural qualities, medium to low naturalness, some connectivity and variations in quality. It's a comparatively low scoring LCT, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And in terms of a threshold, what it had to get over, this was one of the poorer performing LCTs, wasn't it?
Yes.
Put it like that.
Yes.
Thank you. Much of the area then relates to the pastoral valleys LCT. There is an overlap, isn't there? A considerable overlap.
Sorry, are you talking?
The Stincher Valley, back to the Stincher Valley LL.
The LCT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. There can we agree no direct.
Sorry, can I just clarify that for
the
reporters, and particularly in relation to page 88 of the local landscape review, which we've just been looking at. You will see, Mr. Reid, that under scenic qualities, it talks about some of the hills lying on the periphery of that landscape character type. So that they are recognised as making an important contribution to the setting and character of the Stincher and Girvan valleys. and that informed the boundary alignments for those LLAs subsequently to include some of those hills.
There's no reference in the, so back to page 28, internal page 28. So when we do a description of character and the special qualities, there's no reference there, is there, to the Hadyard Hill wind farm or the visual effects that might have?
Sorry, I'm still finding the page. Was it page
28? Page 28. So this is area F, which is the
Electronic 44.
Thank you.
It's like a tag team. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
You do paper, I'll do electronics.
Yeah, that's
Been very quick, Mr. Reid. Okay, 40. Right, I have that.
so area F. The Stincher. We've got location, boundaries, reason for designation. Then we've got description of character and special qualities. Not that the Hadyard Hill Wind Farm doesn't even feature, does it, in the description?
Well, you see both the Hadyard Hill Wind Farm and the Carrick Wind Farm from parts of the Stincher Valley. And I think you need to think about what the purpose of the statement of importance is, and the purpose of defining local landscape areas. And in the guidance, it quite clearly says that one of the key aspects of their definition is as an accolade. I don't think when a statement of importance needs to be fairly short and to the point, I'm not sure that there is scope to actually describe potentially detracting features within that description. I think you want to focus on the special qualities. I don't think views of wind farms are necessarily comprised of special qualities. So I think that's the reason why they're not mentioned.
I don't quite understand that, because this is a description of character and special qualities. We've looked at that. It's doing two things, isn't it? It's describing what's there, and then it's describing the the SQs. And in a description of character, one may look at, or one would expect to look at, characterizing influences if that's what the author thought they were, good or bad.
But I didn't think that they were characterizing influences. I didn't think to that degree that they were so strongly influential on the character and special qualities of that landscape.
Right. So can we just say, so Hadyard Hill, in your view, wasn't a significant characterizing influence? Is that on the Stincher?
It is visible, but it's not a significant influence overall on that LLA.
No, that's very fair. So if you were setting a threshold, if you like, of those things which would get into the arena of being characterizing or being sufficiently characterizing, you looked at that and you thought that wind farm development didn't cross that threshold.
At present, yes. At the time for writing.
Hadyard Hill is what I'm really interested in.
Yes.
The other,
Okay.
So at that time, so existing, let's put it like this: existing wind farms, who considered it but didn't cross that threshold of characterization.
It certainly not a key characterizing influence in terms of the concise nature of these statements of importance. I mean, if you'd had 4 pages, you might have put more in, but they need to be fairly concise.
Well, it's the second time you've mentioned that about length of document. I mean, I'm not sure a sentence would make any difference. The point is, for me, is that you applied your mind when looking at characterization. You actively looked at those, and you, I think we've agreed, you're just reading your word back to you, is that the existing wind farm development wasn't a significant characterizing influence on the Stincher Valley LLA. That's your evidence.
It is my evidence, but I am also saying that these statements of importance, they do take into account that the LLAs are an accolade. They are really celebrating what's important.
I'm not interested in that for a minute, Mr. What I'm interested in is, and I've got your answers, I think, but in the description of characters, we're not looking at what's good, not looking at SQs, we're looking at description of character. The evidence that I've got is that when you applied your mind, existing wind farm, including Hadyard Hill, wasn't a significant characterising influence on the LLA to merit attention.
That's fine.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Very,
very grateful. Thank you very much.
But I think it's also important for the reporters to note the purpose of the statements of importance and defining local landscape areas.
Sure, that's fully known to the reporters. It's interesting if we could just go, and that's got a very clear answer to my question on that. If we could go back to page 67, so back to the tables. So you'll see there the foothills with the forest and wind farms LCT 17C description. You've got the scored landscape criteria, and so under scenic qualities you've got rating median. They've got, while in general these foothills are strongly influenced by extensive wind farm development, commercial forestry and quarrying prominent undeveloped hills applying on the periphery of this LCT make an important contribution to the setting and character of the Stinch and Girvan valleys. So what you've done is it helpfully looked at that, and in the description, foothills being strongly influenced by extensive wind farm development, you then thought, what I'm going to do is look at that. Does it characterise? And that then fed through to the evidence that you've just given about it not being a sufficiently characterising influence. So strongly influenced, but not sufficient to merit a sentence in the characterisation description.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes. This is an evaluation, though. The tables that we're presently looking at, they are the initial evaluation.
Of course. And what we can take from that is absolutely you applied your mind, as you do. You're very assiduous. Of course, Sanderson, when you wrote the description of character, you knew all of that background. You could put anything in, and you applied discernment. And in your discernment, wind farms weren't a characterising influence on the Stincher.
That's
where we get to.
And I should also clarify for the reporters that there was a study team looking at the local landscape designations. There were 3 of us in the team, including an archaeologist and another landscape architect. So it's not just solely my opinion.
Excellent. So it's a team effort. All the team agreed with you that existing wind farm development didn't characterise the Stincher. So we can put that down as you were peer reviewed, and your group agreed it wasn't a characterising influence. So thank you for that. We can then look at the paragraphs that are in there. So under the character and special qualities, we just try and run through those. The narrow valley and pronounced hills, that's visual context, isn't it, really?
Sorry, what reference?
Page 28. Page 28, area F, Stincher Valley description.
Okay.
So this is really just running through Mr. Cook's evidence. Just want to put these points to you quickly. So we're looking what we're trying to do. We've agreed precautionary basis, look at all of this, see how it may be impacted. So if we're going to just work on that basis, that anything in here. So the narrow valleys, the first paragraph, it seems to me to do with narrow valleys and pronounced hills. Just as an overview, that's really background, isn't it? That's visual context, if I can put it like that.
But there's still special qualities.
Yeah. Okay. So visual effect and SQs. Yeah. I mean, let's just, before we do that, what I've agreed with you is that on a precautionary basis, because you haven't teased out any specific SQs, right? All of this needs to be taken into it. Let's just treat it as if it was all part of SQ description, right?
You need to review it all. Yes, that's correct. We've agreed that.
What I'm saying is, be clear. You haven't identified a bullet point list of special qualities. You know, sometimes you see that and you see the individual. You haven't done that.
Mr. Hardy, can I interrupt? We have gone through this. I I have clearly said that we haven't done a bullet point list and that some studies do. We haven't, other studies don't either. But this accords with the guidance. So we have.
Ms. Anderson, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is, just so that the context for the questioning is clear, you haven't identified a bullet point list of SQs. So on the cautionary basis, what I'm saying is the assumption underlying these questions is that everything below that subheading, description of character and special qualities, needs to be looked at and on a precautionary basis treated as if it could be an SQ. That's the correct thing. Good. So you don't need in every question to say, yes, that needs to be an SQ as well, because that's the assumption for the question. Okay?
Yes.
Right. So that first paragraph is dealing, isn't it, with yes, it may be treated as an SQ. We need to deal with all of that, but that is principally dealing with the visual context, how the narrow valleys and pronounced hills, how they present.
Yes. Yes, it's there. It rolls in landscape and visual aspect. Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to say that not taking away from that assumption, it's descriptive, isn't it? It's what
it is. Yes. As you would expect in a statement of importance. Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Secondly, then the estuary mouth, so the second paragraph, and Ballantrae, that would be unaffected, wouldn't it, by Craiginmoddie?
Yes.
The Glen Teague tributary, that would be unaffected.
Yes.
The Knockdolian Hills would be unaffected.
Knockdolian Hill, yes.
Knockdolian, yes, the hill of Knockdolian. Next paragraph, the compact villages, they'd be unaffected.
They are unaffected in terms of their setting, yes.
Q, estate houses, then next one, they're unaffected. Next paragraph down.
Affected.
Thank you very much. The narrow and wider valley floor, then that's the next paragraph down. Again, that's largely descriptive. It's important, but that's rather like paragraph 1, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you. And recreational routes, that's limited effect only, isn't it? There's disagreement over that, but it's a discrete part of the recreational routes.
There are some adverse effects on, but generally I have considered that they would be significant.
Just while we're on that, because that's the third of the reasons for objection, but let's just try and deal with it quickly. There was only one question put in cross-examination yesterday in relation to the Hunter Blair monument. Can I take it that that is in your mind is a secondary issue as well? In terms of what I'm not quite clear is the mechanism, if you like, for how that resonates with the planning system, because you're saying by reason of height, because we've been over that word before, but by reason of height, this would be unacceptable by reason of views from the recreational routes. That's what the council has resolved, isn't it?
Can you take me to that reference?
Yes. Yes. So if you go to reason.
In the council's reasons for objection?
You can go back to your report if you want, because that's the easiest place if you want. So that's internal page 4 of your inquiry report.
Yes.
So when it says tourism and recreation routes, you'll see that what's referred to: the Merrick Wildland Area, Galloway Forest Park, Dark Sky Park, stretches of the National Cycle Route 7, including Nick of the Ballock, stretches of the Ayrshire Alps Cycle Park, Portland Views, Colonel Hunter Blair Monument, Cornish Hills, Shallock and Minnock. And then it says this: it's considered that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects of this wind farm could be mitigated by reducing the size of the. However, given the vertical height of the proposed turbines, the location of this proposal is inappropriate given the sensitivity of nearby landscape. So somehow the height of the turbines presumably because they can be seen from those recreational routes and tourist locations, somehow renders the scheme unacceptable. That's what the reason.
That's interesting, because that's not how I read that paragraph. Of course, I didn't write this, it was council.
Well, okay. How else do you read it?
I read it because it says at the top of the page, it says visual effects due to the scale and positioning of the proposed turbines and the associated impacts of these effects.
Mhm.
And then it lists sort of key viewpoints where the council believes there would be significant adverse effects, which is largely based on my advice. So that sentence, it is considered that the significant adverse landscape and visual effects could be mitigated. I read that as a sort of separate point. So it's not just about height there, it's also about positioning in relation to the viewpoints.
Well, it can't be, can it, with respect, because it's the same wording as in Roman 1, which is that it's the preface. It's saying it's contrary to the criterion in the wind energy document on the basis of significant adverse landscape and visual effects. It's the same wording in 1 and 3. That's the preamble. It says it's contrary to
scale and positioning.
So does reason for objection 1.
Yes.
But we've already agreed that the reason why the site is inappropriate in relation, or the only reason why it's inappropriate, is in relation to vertical height, and that's exactly the same, isn't it, with reason 3, because you mention the receptors, and then the council resolves that it's the vertical height of the turbines that is the sole reason for the problem from those particular receptors.
I think you're addressing these questions to the wrong person.
Well, that's how I read it.
I was not the author of the committee report, and I did not draft the reasons for objection.
No.
I think positioning, I would interpret that as the planning officer thinking about the elevation of the site, in which case the positioning is a relevant factor in terms of increasing the intrusion on those viewpoints that you mentioned earlier.
I'll obviously make submissions on the statutory reasons for objections. It's quite clear, it seems to me, that the author of the report, of course, he's speaking for the council. You're with respect to the landscape consultee, but the council is saying that it's the height of the turbines, which, when viewed from those routes and receptors, would be unacceptable. Now, I'm interested in the mechanism. You don't produce any evidence, do you? Or the council doesn't produce any evidence of deterrence. So, in other words, yeah, you can see it from a black rated cycle route. Rhetorically, so what? You aren't suggesting, are you, that people are not going to enjoy the Alps circuit or the black rated Nicobalic cycleway? You're not suggesting they're not going to go to those to cycle and enjoy the road cycling experience, are you, just because the turbines are too high?
I'm not qualified to make that judgment.
No.
I haven't said anything in my evidence to this inquiry on that.
Nor has any.
Need a great deal of accurate and focused investigation and questioning of people that use those facilities.
No, nor has anybody else from the council, you see. So what I'm interested in, you're the witness that deals with these things, is the mechanism by which any potential effects that are identified matter in a planning sense, because I understand landscape character and visual effects in and of themselves, but this is a point about recreation and about enjoyment of tourism and recreation resources. So it would have to sound, wouldn't it have to be a purpose, if you like, in planning? And that would, seems to me, be, well, if you're on National Cycle Route 7 and you think the turbines are 50 metres too high or whatever else it is, somehow that is a a harm that might deter you from using National Cycle Route 7? And I find that very difficult to understand. I don't know whether you can offer an explanation of that mechanism.
No, I can't, but I think the council would have taken the effects, considered the effects in the round, not just from one or two viewpoints. And they are conscious that particularly the high Carrick Hills and that area is very well used by cyclists and walkers, and that obviously is a key concern of theirs.
Yeah.
The effects of wind farm development on that.
Yeah, so I mean, just a couple of points on that. So we can agree that neither you or, to the best of your knowledge, the council, nobody produces evidence, say, of deterrence from using recreational routes or cycle routes from wind farms. It's not part of your evidence.
You're meaning by deterrence, you're meaning that whether it would deter people from repeat visits, I presume that's what you're meaning. There is no detailed evidence on that.
Yeah, what I'm meaning, to be clear, is that by reason of the vertical height of the proposed turbines in this location, that somehow there would be a measurable and adverse impact on tourism and recreation resources, because that's what we're told by the council is the concern. And you're not producing evidence, are you, to substantiate that deterrence?
There's no evidence apart from the increased intrusion, which equates to the degree of significance of the effects from some of those key viewpoints.
Yes, but in terms of the enjoyment of the tourism and recreation resources in reason for objection 3, there is no empirical evidence. There's no even local evidence, actually, of people being put off from using those resources.
No, there isn't. That's a full research programme that needs to be done, and we're not presenting evidence on that.
Thank you. Hadyard Hill, I think, has got a cycle route, hasn't it, through the actually through the wind farm?
That's in the on the minor road, yes.
Yeah. And of course, that's a well-sited wind farm, according to you. So it's a well-sited wind farm with a cycle route through the middle of it.
Yes.
Okay. Why does that get different treatment? Why is that well-sited with a cycle?
It's a proposal. This is a proposal.
No, no. But if it's well-sited with a cycle route through the middle of it, why suddenly do cycle routes become a matter of concern to the point of objection in relation to Craiginmoddie at a number of kilometres away?
Well, you asked me a question I can't possibly answer because I wasn't involved with the appraisal of Hadyard Hill wind farm, which is quite an old wind farm. So I wouldn't have known what the council raised if they objected. I don't recall.
All right, let's leave that. I think that's all I need to ask on the Stinshire Valley. Let's move on to the High Carrick Bells. That's back to the review document, internal page 32. Same sort of deal. Much of that area relates to the rugged uplands, lochs and forests LCT, doesn't it?
Yes.
And got the description of character and special qualities we can see on page 32. So the first bullet point, the north-south ridge, geology is mentioned. That's unaffected, isn't it? I think you agree with?
Yes, and I'm quite clear that is the case in my inquiry report.
I think it's paragraph 6.13 of your inquiry report, if you wanted that, 6.13.
And actually, perhaps instead of going right through this, I think there was a degree of agreement between myself and Mr. Cook that he gave in his evidence yesterday that would be principally the perceptual qualities of that associated with that LLA affected and views from that LLA.
Okay, well, let's treat it in that way so we can agree that there are no, you're satisfied, no impact on the SQs apart from perceptual qualities.
And views.
Perceptual qualities and views. All right, let's leave that there. Can we just deal with the withdrawal by the council, or the impact of the withdrawal by Nature Scott of the wildland objection? And for this, I'd like you to look at CD 16.011.
Right, 16.0.
16.011.
Oh, I'm going to have to, I haven't downloaded that, so I don't recall that being on the list. See, 16.011. Okay, I have that, Mr. Hardy.
So this is written by Stantec on behalf of the council, and it's the response to Nature Scott's submission on wildland. So what's said is that SAC notes Nature Scott's further written submissions of 30th of January, confirming that Nature Scott has removed its objections in relation to the impact on the Merrick wildland area. This change in position has been prompted by policy 4G of the now adopted MPF4. Nature Scott's views that the effects of the proposed developments on the qualities of the Merrick wildland area would now not be a significant consideration of the determination of the applications. However, Nature Scott clarified that their advice on the effects of the proposed developments on the Merrick wildland area remain valid. And then SAC agree with Nature Scott's interpretation of the new MPF in relation to wildland and its implications on an objection based solely on the impacts on the SQs of the Merrick wildland area. Accordingly, SAC no longer intends to take part in the wildland specific session of the inquiry and no longer maintains its objection on that specific inquiry topic. SA does maintain all its other objections, and for the avoidance of any doubt, maintained its objections on landscape and visual impacts, including in relation to local landscape areas, tourism receptors, and the impact of aviation lighting on dark skies. So obviously you didn't write that. I don't know, did you have input into that, the wording of that document?
I didn't know.
Okay. When I read that, it's difficult, I think, to read it other than that anything to do with the perceptual qualities have fallen away. So what's left? Landscape and visual impacts, including in relation to the local landscape areas, but that's other than perceptual qualities which would go along with wild land, tourism receptors, and the impact of aviation lighting. Is that a fair interpretation?
No, I don't think that's fair.
What's left then?
I think it's the local landscape areas, and the wildland area was taken into account in its designation because there are distinct perception of wildness that can be experienced in these little settled upland areas, and I think that can stand independently of the wildland area in relation to this withdrawal of their objection.
Right.
I think, Nature Scott, it is quite clear from that statement that Nature Scott clarified that their advice on the Merrick wildland remains valid. And I think, it is part of the it is a key special quality of the High Carrick Hills LLA. So it is appropriate to consider that.
I'm puzzled, Miss Anderson, because wildness is a perceptual quality, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. When you look at the sensitivity to change, which is on page 33, so we're back now to the review designations review document. We're in area G, High Carrick Fells, begins on page 30, page 32.
Yes.
And when you see sensitivity to change, it's on page 33.
Mm-hmm.
So landscape is highly sensitive to tall structures such as masts and wind turbines, including those sited in adjacent upland areas where they would intrude on views from open hilltops and diminish the sense of wildness experience. Okay. What the council, what you seem to be doing is maintaining perceptual wildness issue, even though the statutory consultation has withdrawn the higher status concerns. And I don't get that.
I don't think there's any conflict. It is a key special quality of this LLA. A sense of wildness is something that is considered in landscape character assessment. The guidance relates to that, guidance that's issued by Nature Scott and others.
So how's that different to the higher level concern of wild land? Because wild land, it is a perceptual matter, whether it's wild.
It is, but just because the objection to wild land, the effects on the wild land area have been withdrawn, I think it's still pertinent to consider it as part of the LLA. It is a special quality.
Yes, but the wild, so far as Craiginmoddie is concerned, because there was an objection raised in relation to wildland, that would have to be an impact on the perception of wildness. When you're in that area, looking towards Craiginmoddie, somehow that would reduce the perception of wildness. That would be the mechanism, wouldn't it? Right?
Yes.
So Nature Scott say, well, yeah, but we're going to remove that objection based on the impact of Craiginmoddie on that perception of wildness in the wildland area.
Well, they're removing the objection in relation to NPF 4. They do say quite clearly that their advice in terms of effects in the Merrick wildland area remains valid.
Yeah, but how can that be? It's the same thing. Or are you just saying the NPF 4 thing is just a matter of nomenclature? It's just a policy thing. That yes, they've been forced to remove that, but actually, you know, the underlying substance remains. But it's the same thing, isn't it?
Well, I think the underlying substance does remain. So I think the effects do remain on the wildland area. That is my view. Right. But those effects also apply to the LLA.
So your view would be that Nature Scott shouldn't have removed, or you'd be concerned about removal of the wildland objection, but actually NPF 4 forced Nature Scott's hand. Is that a sort of summary of where you are with it?
I think that's fair enough. I think if it hadn't been NPF 4, they would be at this inquiry. Of course they would.
Yeah. So the difficulty there, and it's obviously a matter for the policy session, of course, is that there has been a change in government policy because the government's saying get on with it. And actually wildland, don't hold that as an objection to wind farms because we need to get on. That would be the point that would be taken against somebody still clinging on to a policy that's gone, wouldn't it?
Clinging on to a policy?
Yeah, you want to maintain. Yeah, absolutely. What you've just indicated, Ms. Anderson, is that you're sorry that the wildland objection went because Nature Scott had its hand forced by NPF 4. You would rather see that wildland objection remain. The point to be taken again.
Because I care about the wildland area, as I care about other wildland areas. Yeah. But I'm a landscape witness. I'm not addressing policy. I can't address the reasons why Nature Scott withdrew their objection. I understand them, but you know, I was party to that. So I think you're asking the wrong person.
No, I've got my answers, thank you. And of course, higher, I mean, wildland is of a higher order protection, isn't it, than LLA?
It's not a designation. So I'm not sure that it depends on what you mean by higher protection. I think in terms of policy, I'm not sure it is such a higher protection now that NPF4 has been issued. So, and certainly in NPF4, there appears to me as a non-planner to be a greater protection given to local landscape areas.
It's very interesting. So let me just note that. So you think there's greater protection?
Well, in terms of policy 4, yes.
So greater protection given to LLAs than to wildland. Great. All right, thank you very much. That's helpful. Let's move on to the Girvan Valley. We're almost there. Next document, page 36, paper page 36. Hopefully deal with this in one question. It's agreed, isn't it, that there are no significant effects on the integrity or qualities of the Girvan Valley Area H?
That's correct. The key special qualities of the Water of Girvan LLA principally relate to the designed landscapes. And because they are quite contained by policy woodland and there would be few views from them, that is the reason why I didn't consider that there would be a significant effect on the special qualities, key special qualities of this.
Don't need to spend any more time on that then. Last few questions then. Recreational resource. Let's just go back to that a little bit. Dealt with the sort of cycle routes and so on. We are outside the Dark Sky Park. We're in the transition area, aren't we?
Yes.
Outside the Galloway Forest.
Yes.
There's no policy protection in relation to the transition for the dark sky areas. It's 10 miles outside the boundary. We are in that area, so there's no policy protection.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. We've dealt with the Hunter Blair Monument, Cornish Hill. It's the same point really in relation to the mechanism. What's between us is that you're going to have a visual effect, and somehow within that reason for objection 3, the council would have to satisfy the decision makers that would lead to deterrence or such an unacceptable enjoyment on recreational use that the wind farm should be turned down.
Yes, in relation to tourism and recreation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Now we've dealt with the 3 reasons for objection, been very clear in separating out 1, 2, and 3, but in relation to recreation, that was what that question related to. Aviation lighting, we've fully covered. Cumulative matters, I think that merited one question yesterday in cross-examination of Mr. Cook. That's not your principal concern, is it, with relation to Craiginmoddie? It doesn't feature very much in your report. It's a secondary concern, isn't it, for you?
No, I don't think so. And I'm not quite sure. Would you like to show me where you think it is indicated that that's the case?
It was in the cross-examination yesterday, Mr. Cook. There was one question, and it was put on this basis. Mr. Cook, the reporters have got evidence in relation to cumulative effects. It's a matter for them, isn't it? That was the way the question was put.
Well, I set out the cumulative effects in section 9 of my inquiry report, which the reporters can see, and also in my precognition, I looked at the additional effects of Craiginmoddie in terms of cumulative effects. So I do have concerns. I do have concerns of in respect of the effects of this proposal with other application stage developments, including Carrick and Knockcronal.
All right, let's just look at it then. It seems to be more interest than I would give credit to it, given the single question yesterday. Carrick and Knockcronal, in lots of views, would read as a single cluster, wouldn't they? And Craiginmoddie would be slightly separated,
Yeah.
being close to Hadyard Hill. Yeah.
Yes.
we know from the capacity study, we've got the answers in the transcript, the eastern area is least sensitive.
Sorry, say that again, please.
Yes, the eastern area, we know from the transcript, the eastern area is least sensitive, and you have already confirmed that there is no objection to, in principle, to the Craiginmoddie site because of that greater sense of or lesser sensitivity, greater accommodation.
Correct.
Okay. So there is there's a difference there in relation to U-27, the cycle route. I think there's one significant effect identified by Mr. Cook, but that's not an effect that would be any different in relation to solus and cumulative effects. It would be one that's already there from Craiginmoddie on its own.
Yes.
You don't take any issue in relation to nighttime lighting as cumulative. Again, if it's a secondary issue for the individual schemes, we've already looked at the use of ADSL. That would be helpful, but you aren't relying on nighttime aviation lighting effects, are you, in a cumulative sense?
I do mention that in paragraph 9.5.
You do, yes.
My inquiry report.
Yes.
I do consider that there would be a cumulative effect on the High Carrick Hills LLA and potentially on the Galloway Dark Sky Park. So it's a combined effect.
Helped if ADSL came along, of course.
Of course it would, yes.
And then this is a matter, you're not going to agree with this, but Mr. Cook's view, should all three schemes be consented, so the combined effect, Craiginmoddie would reinforce the baseline nature of LCT 17C, but the characteristics would remain and prevail as the foothills with forests with wind farms, wouldn't it?
Yes, that was an interesting point because that actually conflicts with what is stated in the LVIA. Because I think Mr. Cook, from my understanding of his evidence yesterday, he was saying that he thought it would be a landscape of foothills with wind farms rather than a landscape that was dominated by wind farms, i.e. a wind farm landscape, which seemed to be contrary to what was said in the LVIA.
Of course, he didn't write the LVIA, Ms. Sampson, so that's
he has agreed with his findings in his review. So just because he didn't write it, he is standing at this inquiry, giving evidence in relation to an LVIA, which he is supporting.
Of course, and your leading counsel had the opportunity to question him on that. So Mr. Cook's evidence is as it is. Right, I think just check my notes. That's all I want to ask. Thank you very much. So we've made good progress. Oh, hold on, I've got one. Instructions on something else. Just give me a second, if you may. I'm not going to ask any further questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson, in good time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I just turn to Mr. Bray or Mrs. Leaven to see if they've any questions for Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr.
Leaven.
I think I've had everything I wanted to ask answered. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bray.
I don't really have a question, but just in relation to that last point raised by Mr. Hardy, just to confirm that Ms. Anderson's evidence on combined cumulative effects, that's in her inquiry report at paragraph 9.4 onwards. So that's where we look for the combined cumulative effects.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Bray, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bray. Again, I have had the questions I did have at the start of the morning covered and answered, so I won't repeat them and ask them again, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Armstrong, re-examination.
Just 2 points to come back on. Ms Anderson, you were asked a number of questions by Mr Hardy in relation to the LLA review and the use of the statement of importance and the reasons for designation and description of character and special qualities. Mr Hardy referred to, I think at one stage, the precautionary principle in having regard to every line in the description of character and special qualities. But can I just be clear that as far as the special qualities are concerned, do you identify, having looked at the statements of importance, the relevant special qualities for each LLA for the High Carrick Hills at paragraph 6.10 of your report, and for the Stincher Valley and paragraph 6 to 18?
Yes, yes, I do. I have identified them in those paragraphs.
And did Mr. Cook yesterday, did you understand that he was disagreeing with that identification or not, please?
He didn't state that he was, no.
And the only other point is just to clarify, as far as the interpretation of the objections and what is or is not set out in the report accompanying the objections, you're not the witness dealing with that. That was a matter which would have been dealt with in the earlier session, the policy session.
That's correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong, and thank you, Ms. Anderson, for giving your evidence today. It's been most helpful for us, so thank you for that. Does Mr. Bray or Mr. Leven have any other general questions? Seeing a nod, Mr. Bray, and a nod from his name. Okay, well, the next scheduled session will be a virtual inquiry session in relation to aviation safety in connection with the Craiginmoddie and the Carrick applications. This is scheduled to commence at 10 AM on the morning of the 4th of September. Following that, there will be the conditions hearing, which will be reconvened on a date that is yet to be agreed. Consider the conditions related to aviation matters. As indicated, after the conditions hearing on Tuesday, we will be writing out to parties confirming the arrangements for closing submissions towards the end of next week. Any questions from any other parties here present today? Okay, I'm seeing nods all around. So I would just like to thank you all for your engagement and participation in the inquiry session. And we look forward to seeing some of you in September. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.